Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Redeem Her Time podcast. I love when it's not just me. I mean, it's fun to be me, myself, and I behind a microphone and talking to you guys, but it's really fun when I get to share this time with someone else. And so I've got Lauren Golen with me today, and I'm super excited. We're going to have a conversation around, get this, the hidden cost of staying in a role that God has already said you're outgrown, right? And like, how often do we, like, well, this is what I heard, and so I'm here and I'm doing it, and yet He's ready to nudge us onto the next thing. And so, Lauren, I'm excited to welcome you to the Redeem Her Time podcast. Start by just telling us a little bit about you outside of the work you do. Like, what are you juggling in this season of life? Kind of where's your time going these days?
Ooh, okay. In this season of life, while outside of leading my business and, I steward deep relationships. Like that's something that I absolutely love is spending time with friends, spending time with new friends, walking closely with women who, have similar visions. I mean, we don't have to have the same vision, but we have the same vision in the way that we want to lead people to the Lord and we want to grow and we want to bring heaven on earth. And so outside of that, I love to dance. I love to be with my dog. I love to be with my family. And I'm just learning right now that we need the kind of leadership in this world that the Lord is really showing me I get to make a bigger difference in that area. So, all
I
the
love
things we're
it.
going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so important. And I love, like, we get to experience the kingdom here and now. I'm in
Mhm.
Matthew right now, right? And that's what it's all
Yes.
about is the kingdom of
Yep.
heaven has come near. And that has everything to do with our time, right? And the way that
Mhm.
we invest it in our life and also in our
Yes.
business. So tell us a little bit about the work you do. Like, how has God
Okay.
uniquely called you to serve women through your business? And maybe kind of take us a little bit on the journey of how He brought you there. So oftentimes there's a story or something that really just kind of, drove why this is such a passion for you.
Yes, yes. So the work I do centers on high capacity women leaders who sense something has shifted.
Mm.
They're not necessarily burnt out, although you might be saying that because we kind of grip onto language that we hear, out in the world. Um, you're not necessarily lost or broken. You're capable, you're faithful, and you're still producing results. But the way that you're leading, for whatever reason, no longer feels aligned for you. And how that does show up is that it feels like you're pushing things. It feels like you're tired doing things that used to feel really easy and joyful and aligned. I know a lot of times we speak from, what once carried grace now requires effort. And you're probably in a place where you don't want to override that anymore or push past it. So before this work and what got me here, I actually spent almost 3 decades teaching movement and breath-based practices. I actually was a yoga teacher for close to 28 years. And that background, I mean, the Lord closed that season of my life 3 years ago very quickly. And that's another reason why I do this work because my entire identity and who I thought I was really wrapped up in a lot of that.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that God pulls good from things that we don't even know. Like he's actually equipping us in ways that we don't know. So that background that deeply shaped how I actually understand discernment. I learned early on that the body registers change before the mind does. And a lot of times as leaders, we're overriding that. So
Mm.
leadership transitions don't begin with strategy. When I'm working with women, I'm actually beginning with sensation, with resistance, with the body, with how it's registering, and the awareness. I bring that piece into my work. So, God really used that lens combined with my own leadership work that I've been doing since I was 26 to show me how often women continue leading from identities that they formed not even just in earlier seasons, but early in life. And we don't even know that we bring those with us. So, identities that served you, sometimes well, sometimes served you because they needed to serve you, but they weren't meant to be leading forever. So that insight became the foundation of my work and why I care so deeply about women leading from wholeness, from alignment,
Mm.
rather than habit or programmed or adapted identities.
Yeah, well, I love this. In fact, we are in the middle of a series right now about work and worship, where we talked about our first episode was CEO identity. And so, just to put it in our terms that my audience knows, a CEO is a Christ empowered operator of the life and business that we've been
Ooh.
called to. And so, we talked about, like, yes, how our identity matters so much. And then on the next episode in that series, we talked about our CEO calling. And this is what I'm hearing with you. It's like so often we feel like called to something. But then what you just brought up is like what happens when that thing suddenly, I mean, whether it's whisked away overnight or whether it's a slow fade or whether it's, whatever in our
Yeah.
control or not. I think so many women, we struggle then with what's my calling, what's my identity, because I think they're very intertwined for us, right?
Yes.
If that role we were playing is no
Yes.
longer there, and then we struggle to say, who am I now?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I love that you are bringing in, like, in some ways, it's like, how does yoga and breath work even tie into this? And yet, this is actually going to lead to my next question. So, I just want to kind of ask you about this. Like, you talked about you work with women who are sensing a shift. So, that was my question that I was just like formulating in my mind as you were talking was like, how do we sense that shift? Like, what do we start looking for to know that we're even starting to maybe to enter that, or we're already in that season of something shifting? What might be some signs? Now you've told us it's showing up in the body before the mind. So what might be some things that we're looking for?
hmm a lot of times it's like an offness, right? Like feeling like something is off. Feeling like a level of something being hard, not because it's hard, right? God's gonna give us hard things, right? But there's a difference between doing something that's challenging and hard, but also underneath it, you still know if you stop that you have like the peace of the Lord around it.
Mm.
But there's other things that we do where if you stop, you and get in touch with even just simple things like stopping, being still for a minute, concentrating on your breath, and then all of a sudden, really feeling into is there pressure there or is there peace? And it seems
Hmm.
so simple, right? But usually it is simple for us when we give ourselves this space to say, let me just see what this feels like. And I think a lot of times women stay stuck there, these, high capacity women leaders, because they're afraid of getting the answer. Like, what if I
Oh,
stop and I feel like that something's actually off? Then I'm going to have to give all this up. And I don't want to know that. So there's almost like a level of like, let me just stay in this
avoidance.
space, like be in denial and not like deal with reality. And I always like to add in to women when I'm working with them is like, we don't know yet. Like, unless people come to me and they really know it's time to leave this. Like, sometimes the whole thing doesn't need to be burned down. Like, you don't need to close the business. Sometimes it is literally an identity that you're leading from that needs to go, but not necessarily the business, right? Not necessarily the thing that you're doing. So that's a big piece right there.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I would have thought that the reason we don't know the shift is coming, it's more of a I'm not even taking time to notice. And what I heard you say is sometimes we already sense it, but we are afraid to take the time to notice because of what it means. Do you
hmm
think that, like, so especially you're working with high capacity women, right? We have a lot of things on our plate. We have a lot of things on our minds, like in your experience and the women you've worked with, do you find that women tend to fall on one side of that or the other, versus the one side being I'm not even taking the time to pause because I just keep doing the do and just keep pushing through, versus okay, I really sense something but I'm afraid of what that answer might be if I slow down.
For me, it's the second. For me, it's the second. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're clear though. Like
Sure.
they're clear and they're going to maybe the worst case scenario,
Okay.
versus there's something that actually could be created where they are. Because most of the time we're always thinking about the thing that we can tangibly like touch, right? It's like, well, now I might need to close my business. We're not thinking I'm functioning from an identity where I am totally self-reliant. And even though I have a team or I have one or two people working with me, I'm really not asking them for support. Or I'm asking them for support and I'm giving them things to do, but then I'm hovering and I'm really not trusting, right? And all of those things create exhaustion. Right. So sometimes someone gets to like look at that identity and gets to go back to like why it was formed, how it made sense, but like now letting it go and stepping into a whole new way of being inside of their business so that they can be in their genius zone and not be spending time on things that they're not really called to be spending time on.
Yeah, right. And obviously there are phases of business growth, and there's a time where you are the person who's punching all the
Oh,
buttons
100%.
and pulling all the levers and things like that. And
You
then,
need
like you
to
said,
learn how to do all the things, right,
exactly. And then
before you
it's
hand them
time
off.
to like, okay, yes. So I love this. So let's dive a little bit more into what you call the hidden cost of staying in these roles that God has outgrown. So first question, why do high capacity women tend to stay longer than they should in roles they've outgrown? We've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but if you have anything else more to say on that. And then what does it cost them over time if they do stay in that place?
Yeah. Well, I think because responsibility ends up really fusing with identity, right?
Mm,
Like, this is who I am. Like, who am I if I'm not the responsible one? And at some point, being dependable, capable, and strong wasn't just what they did, it became who they were.
mm,
So that identity, like I was saying, was formed in seasons that required it, right? And it did produce, like you were just saying, like there are seasons in the beginning of our business where you have to learn how to do everything. You get to, you know,
yeah.
and it does produce fruit, right? Because you learn, you grow, and you earn trust. And in many cases, it is the faithful thing to do. But the
Sure.
challenge is that those identities don't automatically update when a season changes, right?
Mm,
So even when the grace lifts on something, women keep leading from what's comfortable, what's familiar, especially when things are still working, right? They assume that if results are coming, because sometimes women come to me and results are still coming, right? Like things are still working, but they're like, this is something still feels off. But internally, the leadership begins to feel heavier.
okay.
Decisions require more effort. Joy gives way to management, and what once felt spacious starts to feel tight. So it's really a misalignment. And because high capacity women are capable and they can carry a lot of weight, they often don't realize the cost until it's really heavy. So I know you said, what are some of the costs? Like some of the costs are really when you look in every area of life. Like some of the costs that I've noticed the most with the women I work with is they're not really having that much fun, right? They're spending a lot of time and energy on their business and not out there in the world, like having fun, meeting with people, creating, spending time in hobbies and things like that. There's a cost in health, physical, things coming up. Sometimes women don't even recognize when something is happening inside of their body because they're holding, right? So even just some of those costs of stress and those kind of responses that happen in the body.
Yeah, right. And if we don't
Yeah.
pay attention, one day it will demand our attention and will always cost us more time, energy, and money to
Yes.
have to go back and fix it, right? And
Yeah.
then we may feel like everything's on fire, like you
Yeah.
talked about. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I know that the women that I speak to are very passionate and they want to be faithful and fruitful in what God's called them to, right? And so we don't want to stay in a place that we've outgrown. We don't want to stay in a place that's literally draining us of our energy or of our health or of our ability to really fully serve in our business and in other areas of our life. So, how does a woman discern that a season has truly ended? Even when, like you said, things are still working, like on paper, it may look like, this is amazing and this is exactly what you should be doing, but yeah, how do we start discerning whether or not a season has ended, and be able to start leaning into this work?
Yeah. And, in one of the programs that I have like an 8-week program, and I work with women on not strategies, but distinctions. So,
Mm,
we work with things like grace, identity, partnership, but really so much of the work is the work on the court of your life. So, um, even just thinking about, I know we use the word grace a lot, as believers, but really thinking about like grace when I talk about it with leaders in my program, talking to them about like grace means that you don't have to grip onto anything, right? Like,
mm,
so if something feels like it's off, one of the first things that you get to start practicing is actually relaxing and like letting it go, right? Surrendering and letting it go. Letting it go doesn't mean it's going to go away necessarily, but letting go of the gripping, right? That what's underneath you feeling you have to hold things so tight, and practicing doing some of that work inside of just noticing as you're walking around in your day. Like, when does this feeling come up of wanting to grab onto something and control? And because control is a big one.
Yeah.
Most of the clients that I attract have that control piece, just like me, right?
Right.
Because don't we always attract, like, the clients we attract
Exactly.
are usually like us in certain ways. So a lot of the work I do is really like for them to start seeing it on the court. And even practicing the opposite, in moments where you want to control, like practicing doing something different and bringing that into the space. Or when you notice yourself wanting to grip or control, and you're becoming more aware of it, giving yourself an opportunity to like sit and breathe for a minute before you have a conversation with someone. So, a lot of the work is really, it's really based around the Shema. So it's like love the Lord, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And we kind of go through, if you can think about going through all those pieces, like your heart, when the Lord is talking about the heart, always included the mind, right? In scripture, whenever we're talking about the heart and mind are together. So it's really working through all the pieces of feeling those things in the body, starting to release without whatever, you know, I seem to get in conversations a lot with women, like, about guilt. Like, well, if I let this go, I feel guilty because, right? So sometimes there's grief that comes up around these things, like letting go of something and without guilt, right? Without feeling like you're betraying yourself or betraying other people. And sometimes letting go means that other people are going to be disappointed, right? And that doesn't mean that it's your job to hold it together. So I don't even know if I answered your question, Lisa.
You
I
did,
kind of
you
went
did,
off on a
and
tangent.
here's where we're trusting. Like I told you before we hit record, that the Lord is going to bring out through our words what somebody needs to hear, and I think somebody just needed to hear that, right? Like, it's okay. You don't have to keep holding on to something just because you're trying to please somebody else.
Yeah.
That because ultimately it's the Lord that we're here to please, right?
Yep.
And if He's told us to do something or not do something, then that's where we need to go. And so I'd love to kind of start talking about that, because I just had this conversation with my CEOs this morning about obedience and how obedience and clarity are tied together. And so many of us, how many of us
Yes.
we want the whole roadmap. I will sit here, Lord, until you give me A to Z, and then I will start taking step A.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so often, I was just reminded this morning, the children of Israel had to step into the Red Sea before it actually parted. Like,
Exactly.
they had no idea what was going to happen next. They didn't know what the next steps were going to be. By all looks, from the outside, they were, walking right into their destruction. And yet it was that obedience that then opened the way for them to keep walking across the Red Sea. So, yeah, you talk about this, right? Clarity comes after obedience, not before. What does that actually look like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
real life for us as leaders, right? Whether we're leading in our homes, our businesses, our communities, our churches, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a big one. I mean, so I really feel like the women that come to me usually in the next place that the Lord wants to take them, He can't take them, like, if they skipped that step that you were just referring to, and then He took them into the next assignment, they're not even equipped for it, right? Because He's asking us to trust Him, right, at that level. And the next place that when women are at this impasse, I really believe it's something to get excited about, even though it doesn't feel that way, because I think a lot of times it implies that the Lord is like, okay, this, no more. Like, you can't take this control with you anymore, because the next place I'm taking you requires you to let me be in complete control.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when I was just talking about, like, the heart, the soul, the strength, like, at the heart level, it's important for the woman to tell the truth about, like, what no longer feels alive without judging herself for it. At the soul level, she gets to discern what she's been carrying out of loyalty rather than calling. At the strength level, she gets to practice release and control. And all of those things are a lot of times not what she's doing, right? Because like as a CEO, right? Those aren't the things that are happening a lot of times. A lot of times we're doing things, right? We get to be doing things quickly. We get to be in in the like in the sometimes things are moving so fast, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to like sit down and take like 30 minutes to do all this work, although there is that too. Like
Sure.
it is important to be spending the time doing this work, but there's little things that even on the court when you're starting to notice and you're starting to bring attention to things, um, it will you'll naturally start to see where that stuff is coming up. Where am I being in control and not allowing the Lord to just say, like, step and trust him? Where am I holding back?
Yeah. And I'm just
Um,
thinking the whole idea of like a tight clenched fists, right? We're holding
yes.
on to something. And that thing is actually becomes, I mean, it becomes a weight, right? Because there's something we're holding on to in it, but it also keeps us from being able to open handedly receive whatever that next thing is. And so I would guess that this whole letting go, right, is going to release some burdens and things like that, but then also open us up, like you said, for this new opportunity and probably open up some time and mental bandwidth. Hello, right,
Oh,
to
yeah.
start shedding some of the extra things that we've been holding onto, or we're a part of that role. So I always love to kind of talk. I always tease people. I can make any conversation talk about time because I think
I
time is
love it.
like the underlying.
Yeah.
It's either the obstacle to everything or it's the answer to everything, and it's actually both. But or it can be the answer to everything, right? Like, so how does, like, as we start letting go of control, as we start releasing a role that we know that we've outgrown, that God is leading us to this next thing, how does this actually affect our time? How does obedience in this way like simplify our calendar and also probably our mental capacity as well?
I love this question so much because when I saw that was one of the questions, I was thinking to myself that a few months ago I had this experience where every single day, right at about 2 o'clock, I was done. I was like, I don't really have anything else that I need to do today. And I started ending my day at 2 o'clock for like, and it started happening unless I had a meeting booked for after that time. I started ending my day at that time. And then I started going out and taking a walk. I started going to a dance lesson. And I realized looking back, because I didn't realize what was going on right away, but I realized that I started trusting my VA with more. I started realizing that my calendar in general wasn't even organized like very well up until like halfway through last year. And I started seeing where I was just, um, a lot of the busy work that I was doing underneath it was an identity of worrying, was an
Ah,
identity of like anxiety, worrying, not trusting the Lord, right? Not trusting that things were going to work out. But so many of those things started shifting for me last year, and it felt like I had all this extra time. It was crazy. So I think that most women don't realize how much of their time is spent managing what God has already begun to lift grace from, right? So there might be meetings that you're going to that you really don't need to attend. There might be decisions that you're still controlling. And even if you're not like in a meeting, you might be thinking about the meeting or thinking you're wondering if someone's handling the meeting the way that they're supposed to. So all of those decisions and things that you're controlling that are even in your head that are getting in the way of you being present in the other parts of your life. And then roles, like roles you're holding out of loyalty rather than calling. So I think when a woman steps into obedience, it simplifies all these things and you stop negotiating like internally. Like, oh, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but maybe I should be there and it doesn't happen overnight. I think that this work that's happening internally, like it is one of those things, like I was just explaining, where all of a sudden one day you'll go, wow, something feels lighter,
yeah.
feels like I have more time. And you stop over functioning too. I think that's one of the things I see. I would imagine you do too
Yep.
with leaders is like this over functioning. It's almost like, and I remember going through this, the feeling like even though I would leave my desk and tell myself I was done, and then next thing I knew, I was back at my desk working for another 3 hours. So you stop filling your calendar to compensate for misalignment, right? Instead, you get to go, okay, if this is not aligned, I don't want to be doing it. You don't just stay busy from that same identity that's afraid to know the truth or afraid to let go of control or right. So, um,
Yeah, and that's where our
yeah,
identity has to be tied into who we are and whose we are, and not just what we do, because otherwise, you're right, we're going to keep doing in order
yeah,
to feel valued and to feel like we are, yeah, creating something of significance or doing something that matters. And then no one
yeah,
and nothing gets enough of us to really, yeah, see the difference
yeah,
and things like that. So, yes,
yep,
I mean, and you're right. Like those of us who are doers and who like to control things, and who have so functioned in
yeah,
this over functioning high capacity role, it is a process to let go. But I think what I'm guessing happens, I'm just thinking from my own experience, we don't even realize the freedom that's on the other side. We don't, because we've gotten, so this has become the normal, right? Like we don't even
yep,
know, oh my goodness, what could I like actually look like in my life if I was done with work by 2 o'clock and had the rest of the day to just refill and pour out into,
right,
people around me and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that beauty of just stepping into that and trusting, yeah, maybe I
yeah,
can do this.
exactly.
So, what would be a piece of encouragement that you would give to a woman listening right now who's like, okay, Lauren and Lissa, I know I'm holding on to things. I know there's something I need to let go, whether it's an entire role and a big thing, or maybe it's just a small element of something that she's doing. How would you
Mhm.
encourage her to like? I mean, some of us have the death grip on whatever the thing is, because we're afraid of what's going to happen if we loosen that. How do we start? Yeah, prying the fingers away and letting go.
Yeah. I mean, I think first is really just realizing that letting go doesn't mean that you failed,
Mm,
right? So, um, and I think it's important to really invite Jesus into a conversation with the feeling that you're having around the misalignment or something being off, because it's another thing that we try to control. Once we feel like something isn't aligned, I think it's easy to say, oh, yeah, I'm trusting the Lord with all this. But and then we're making a decision about, oh, well, what if it's this and what if it's that? So I think it's really like inviting Jesus into a conversation and talking to him about it.
mm,
And if it is clear that he wants you to let go of something, letting yourself go through the process of letting yourself grieve, letting go of that, right? Letting go of thinking it's your job to um, hover over something or control something, because I think that there's a process of letting go of things. It's easy to say to someone, "Oh, you just let that go. That's not working for you anymore." But I think that there's a process, and letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you listened, right? Which is wisdom. So
mm,
you're not being to abandon, what matters, or even what mattered. You're being invited to release something that's already served its purpose. And when you do, God doesn't leave like a vacuum, right? He brings alignment.
mm,
Um, and just like you were using the metaphor of the Red Sea, like um, you don't have to force clarity,
mm.
right? You don't need to rush the next step. So, I don't know if this is going to make the listeners feel better, but just like practicing being in that kind of void, right? That space that opens up when you say, you know what, I'm willing to just let go.
Yeah,
Because the good news is like we don't have to ever be alone in that void anyway, because we can invite the Lord in with us. Like, can you
yeah,
be with me as I walk from here into wherever you're taking me next? And I
yes.
think that as much as um, it's easy to like be in the Word and say, I really believe the Lord's in this with me, and then in the next second forget that when we really need Him,
We're just like
right?
the children of Israel, who, yes, just a few books later.
100%.
So I'm really focusing on Isaiah 30 this year, and yeah, the Lord just led them out of Egypt, helped them cross the Red
We
Sea,
forget
brought
the
them through
next
that, and now
second.
they're running back to Egypt.
Yep.
And God's like, hello. And yet he's like, like I'm not hidden, and you are going to hear my voice, and it's going to say, this is the way, walk in it. And
Yeah.
it's behind us. It's not like, above us or in front of us. It's the like as we're walking, right, that voice comes. And I'm working through something right now that I'm letting go of, and I've discovered there's two parts to it. There's the decision to let that thing go, and then there's the process of letting the thing go. right? And so, yeah, we have to make that, there has to come probably that decision point. But then we, like you said, it's usually not just a one and done and like I never think about it again or it never, whatever. Like there's this process in the letting go as well. But it has to start with that CEO decision. And
Yep.
that decision, of course, as CEOs, Christ empowered operators, we're making with him. We're not just going out on our own and trusting
Yeah.
that if that's not what he's saying, then he is going to show us that
Yeah.
because he's not partly sovereign. So,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think really the other question to ask him is like, Lord, who did you create me to be before these roles and responsibilities?
right.
Because our authority isn't in, right? Your authority isn't in the role that you're in. And I wrote something on Facebook yesterday, and like there like this one line that stuck out was like capacity isn't proven by how much you can hold, but by how much you can release without losing authority, right? And we know our authority is obviously in him, and he created us. So I think it's important to go back as you're moving through this type of season is to go to him and ask him, who am I, right, in you? And we know like I'm a daughter of the king, but like even be reminded like of really unique things and ways that he created us. Um, and I think that can be so helpful because a lot of times what ends up happening when I'm working with women with this is they get taken back to like a period of time, usually between 0 and 10, and something that they really enjoy doing. And then they start doing that. Right. Like I have a client right now and she's like, I was always outside climbing trees. And she's like, I have not been spending time in nature for like, so like, she's like, I don't even barely go outside. I'm always behind my computer. So she started like getting in nature more and, starting to kind of connect with a part of her that she had been disconnected from for a while. And it really supported her. It really started creating big transformation in that time that helped her go, like, I miss this. I love this.
Yeah.
And disconnect from the fear of letting go of something that she realized really wasn't aligned for her anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard journey, but it's a beautiful journey. And I'm so glad we don't have to walk this alone with the
Yes.
Lord and with people like you, right? And people in our community where we can do this. So we could talk all day. I mean, obviously, in every season of life and business, there are things that we're constantly needing to let go of control of and embrace or release and things like that. And then a season changes and we've got it all over again once we
Yeah.
think we figure it out, right? So this will be our work we do till the Lord calls us home. But what are some resources that you have to support women in this way? What would be a good next step if someone's listening and going, okay, I want to kind of start being intentional in this way? Where would you send them?
Yeah, yeah. One of the primary ways that I support women leaders is through my Substack. So it's laurengolen.substack.com. I know
Okay.
you said you'll be able to
Yep.
put that somewhere. And I share like formation based writing and audios. There's a free space and a paid space, both designed to support discernment. So once you get in there, there's all sorts of things to read and also I will be announcing inside that space in the next 2 weeks. I'll be opening registration for a 2-day leadership. It's a free 2-day leadership discernment intensive in February called The Crossing. And this is specifically for women leaders who recognize that they're at a threshold like this that we've been talking about, between what they've faithfully stewarded and what no longer carries grace, and who want to cross that season with integrity and partnership with God. So I'll be sharing more about that over there as well.
Yeah, that is exciting. So we'll make sure to
Yeah.
link the Substack in the show notes. So go and check
Okay.
that out. And you guys know I always invite my guests to come into the Redeem Her Time community. This is where we keep the conversation going, where you can interact with our guest, where you can start, sharing some things that you heard or ways that you want to walk this out or ask a question or whatever it is. So come join us over inside the Redeem Her Time community. It's redeemhertime.com/community. And I've invited Lauren to join us and excited to walk this out, like I said, with other faith focused women. So thank you so much, Lauren, today for sharing your wisdom with
Thank
us, your
you.
discernment. I know a lot of women are going to be blessed and challenged by this conversation today. So as I always like to end my interviews with a little bit more of a personal question. One of the signature things that I teach women is how to ask the question, what is it time for? because I think that helps us avoid the distraction, the discouragement, feeling like we don't have enough time, like get present to the time we have. So asking you that question, like in this season of your life or business, how would you answer that question? What is it time for? And what kind of a result, or ROTI, we call it, return on time invested, would you like to see from that?
Ooh, I would say fun and intimacy. I feel like and the return on time investment for that is I feel like endless because if I'm out and I'm into creating intimacy with people and I'm having fun, then I feel like that just automatically creates freedom and connection and joy and and gives me energy. So I feel like it's just like it's a
Yeah,
continuum.
it
And
is.
I don't need to be behind my computer 40 days a week from 9 to 5. That the Lord really showed me that season is over for me and that it's possible to create even more results, miracles from doing less, trusting Him more, and being out in the world feeding His sheep in all sorts of ways.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us
Thank you,
today. I'm
Lisa.
excited to put this out there, and we will see you guys over inside the community.